As some of you might know, I enjoy revisiting older games to see how they hold up in today's gaming landscape. And lately, one title has been taunting me from the overpriced shelves of resellers: Deadpool. Originally released in 2013, this title's availability has been as unpredictable as the regenerating degenerate himself. Pulled from digital storefronts in 2014 due to licensing issues, it made a brief comeback in 2015 to ride the wave of the first movie's hype, only to disappear again in 2017.
God damn it.
Fast forward to now, and Deadpool is back in collectors' crosshairs, not because of a re-release, but courtesy of resellers cashing in on the buzz surrounding Deadpool and Wolverine. And while the game is not exactly groundbreaking by today's standards, or even the standards of its own time, it does manage to tap into some surprisingly relevant topics for today's gaming culture, especially regarding issues of digital licensing and the scourge of corporate meddling in artistic expression. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we dive into the big picture stuff, let's take a closer look at the game itself. The story follows Deadpool, as he, true to form, breaks the fourth wall and coerces High Moon Studios into making a game starring himself. What unfolds is an intentionally absurd and loosely constructed scaffolding for over-the-top action, crude humor, and testosterone-fueled chaos. After scrapping most of the original script, Deadpool decides to improvise his way through a plot that involves stopping Mr. Sinister from rewriting the timeline by manipulating mutants and building an army of clones. Along the way, he teams up with Marvel characters like Wolverine, Cable, and Domino, mostly to annoy them with his antics. Deadpool's an action-adventure, hack-and-slash, third-person shooter. A bit of a mouthful, but the game aimed to capture everything people loved about gaming. Deadpool's core controls included heavy and light melee attacks, paired with standard shooting mechanics. These were complemented by a double jump and teleporting dodge for quick evasive maneuvers. Combat encouraged chaining attacks into combos, building momentum to unleash special moves unique to each weapon. Weapons and skills could be unlocked and upgraded using DP points, which players earned in combat or found scattered throughout the environment. The game also dabbled in stealth mechanics and spiced things up with the occasional special event, dropping players into scenarios with unique mechanics. For the most part, the gameplay in Deadpool was fun and energetic. The lack of cohesive narrative could have worked given Deadpool's tenuous grasp on reality, but there was one major issue: the game wasn't that funny. It had its moments and a handful of clever references, but overall, it leaned heavily into absurdism rather than satire. My main exposure to the merc with a mouth comes from the movies, and I'm sorry if that's blasphemous in the Marvel fandom, but I'm not here to bamboozle anyone. While I can appreciate splashes of absurdism, what I enjoy most about the humor in the films is their satirical depth. I understand that different mediums require different storytelling approaches, and video games in particular need to place a strong emphasis on gameplay. But there was an overcorrection. This meant cramming a variety of fun features into a compact package, but none of them were executed exceptionally well. That's not to say the gameplay was bad, it was solid enough, but without a standout element to anchor the experience, it ultimately felt more functional than memorable. The fact that I can barely recall anything from my original playthrough is a testament to that. In terms of the game's design, my criticisms are mostly cosmetic. For starters, there's an overabundance of copy-pasted enemies, which the game explains as clones, but that doesn't make it any less repetitive. Then there's the outdated method of removing enemy corpses from the map, which could easily be seen as an homage to older arcade games. However, the most significant issue I noticed was the frequent frame rate drops, particularly during the earlier parts of the game. I don't recall experiencing this issue in my original playthrough when the game was first ported to the PS4, but as I've mentioned, I don't remember much from that playthrough at all. It's possible these frame rate drops are the result of compatibility issues on PS5. If you've played it recently on PS4, let me know in the comments if you've run into similar issues. What stood out most while revisiting this 12-year-old game was just how relevant it remains to many contemporary discussions in gaming, especially pertaining to game preservation and the importance of physical media. As I mentioned earlier, Deadpool has been delisted, relisted, and then delisted again from digital storefronts, leaving the hellscape of physical resellers as the only legitimate way to own the game. Unless you're willing to navigate the murky waters of alternative acquisition methods. When you pay for digital media, you're not actually purchasing anything. You're paying for a license which can be revoked at any time without compensation. And this isn't just a hypothetical, it's happened before. In Deadpool's case, we've been lucky that previous buyers haven't had the game forcibly removed from their accounts, but but there's no guarantee that won't change. Beyond the obvious risks of digital-only media, something we as consumers should resist, this situation highlights a bigger issue: the flaws in licensing agreements that actively hinder game preservation. Instead of being bound by arbitrary time limits, IP licensing should be project-constrained, allowing art to be preserved long-term and granting artists greater ownership of their work. One aspect of Deadpool that deserves praise, especially in today's gaming landscape, is its unapologetic commitment to earning that M rating. Blood, violence, crude humor, tig-ol' biddies, and fucking profanity.
Watch your profanity.
Elements that have since increasingly been censored in pursuit of larger audiences, also known as the lowest common denominator. Over time, these qualities have been stolen from us by corporate executives and consultants whose greatest artistic achievement is fabricating yet another fiction for why their latest flop is somehow the fault of gamers or YouTubers. Because of this corporate meddling, many games, particularly in Western development, have become insincere and soulless, with game writers and directors reduced to interchangeable cogs in a machine. Writers and directors should be chosen based on the merit of their previous work and proven creative vision, then left to execute that vision without compromise. You can't calculate the success of an artistic endeavor through spreadsheets and market research. The art must come first, and profits will follow. And even if the game isn't a massive commercial success, there's tremendous value in cultivating a reputation as a developer that prioritizes genuine creative vision over mass appeal. These qualities associated with M ratings are by no means necessary to create a good game, evidenced by the overall meh-ness of this game, but arbitrarily dissuading their use only serves to limit creativity and player choice. On principle, I'm against ratings boards. I believe artists should have the freedom to create what they want, and individuals, including younger audiences, should be encouraged to have the maturity to engage with the content that they enjoy responsibly. I could go way deeper into this rabbit hole, but in the interest of time and not straying too far from the actual game, I'll save some of my rantings for another day. For now, I'll get to my final thoughts. Deadpool is no masterpiece, but it's a short, fun game to blast through over a weekend. It's fast-paced, and despite being a little narratively challenged, it does exactly what it needs to do in its brief runtime. If you're a Marvel fan or enjoy this style of gameplay, it's worth a playthrough, but not at the ridiculous prices resellers are asking. If you can grab it for $50 or less, go for it. It's a nice collection piece, but not worth more than its original retail price. I know I've touched on a lot of topics, even some that go beyond the game itself, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Whether you agree, disagree, or want to dive deeper into any of these points, drop a comment below and let's talk. If you've enjoyed what you've witnessed here today, please consider supporting the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. And if you're so inclined, check out some of my other content. And as always, I hope you'll join me in the next one. I've been Pungent Funk. Keep it funky, fellas.